I'm Benny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us. And the biggest case that's on our docket here at Court TV is the murder of the 4 students at the University of Idaho. It was a case, we're getting close to the 1-year anniversary. I don't know if you call it an anniversary, you know, 1 year since this brutal murder. It devastated a community. There was fear everywhere. There was an amazing investigation, an arrest, and now charges against the accused killer. But he's saying, wait a minute, this indictment's no good. This indictment needs to be tossed by the judge. So there was a big hearing today in Moscow, Idaho, and guess who's joining us tonight? Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter. There she is. It's getting cold in Moscow already. Great to see you, Chanley. So let's talk about the defendant, his appearance inside the courtroom today. We get to see him when he comes in. Some appearances have been notable, others haven't been as notable. How about today?
Well, today he walked in and our Court TV cameras couldn't roll until the judge was on the bench. But of course, I'm in there. I had my eyes on him as he walked in, suit and tie. He did take a moment, as usual, Vinny, to glance up towards the gallery, this time a little bit longer than usual. And he gave a smile, like an awkward smile, but then it was immediate straight face, looking down like he regretted doing that, and then sat down at his counsel table. But what stood out the most to me is at the end of the hearing, nothing notable while his attorneys argued, of course, but he stood up, his pant leg, his suit pant leg was stuck on some restraints that I hadn't seen before. I always wondered because I never noticed shackles on his ankles or his wrist, but I was able to see sitting up front that they actually place a leg brace on him, and we pull up some photos of what it could be or could be like on both of his legs. These leg braces that are underneath his suit pants that restrain him while he's in the courtroom. I tried to inquire more about this, and they said they can't talk about anything about this case, of course, with the gag order, but that was the piece of information I took away today as far as the defendant goes, Vinny.
Yeah, you're talking about a mass murderer, right? And he's wearing a suit, and, you know, safety is always a concern. There's safety from him and safety for him as well, you know, for defendants, because you know, folks in the gallery as well, you always have to be wary, lots of security, but like he's walking around, no cuffs or anything. And this is someone who's so dangerous that he's locked up pending his trial. Now, here's a question that will interest folks here, obviously at Court TV, but all the folks who are watching as well, which is the issue of, do you think, or what has the judge said about the community being able to see this trial? And I'm talking about the community that cannot drive to Moscow or fly into Moscow and get a seat inside the courtroom.
He did. The judge mentioned his decision on cameras. This has been pending. There hasn't been a written decision, but he put on the record today before the arguments began that he will not be banning cameras from his courtroom for this proceeding and the proceedings moving forward. But, Vinny, there is a catch. Let's watch.
You're probably interested in this. I haven't put a decision out yet, but what I'm going to do is take control of the cameras in the courtroom. I'm not going to ban cameras in the courtroom, but I need to have more control over what the cameras are doing and what media or people who are not media are doing with the filming. I know I can only control so much, and that's why I continue to urge people to be patient and have some dignity and some restraint. And some of that I've heard or seen has been disappointing.
So the rumblings from bailiffs, they predict moving forward, Vinny, that we may not be able to take our electronics inside the courtroom anymore. We already can't live stream it, and what other restrictions he may put in place that is yet to be seen. I do want to note that the victims' families were present today for the hearing. That I did hear from the Gonsalves family at least, and they take advantage of what this judge provides, which is a private Zoom link for victims' families to be able to watch all of these hearings unfold, as well as the defendant's family if they want to as well, Vinny.
Interesting. And again, this is a judge who's never banned cameras before. I guess he believes in the transparency, and it seems his concern is what people are doing with images after the fact, perhaps on social media and other places. And okay, but again, he's got an open mind to allowing the public to hear and see the evidence in a case that many in the community and around the country and around the world are invested in. We appreciate that. I think the community appreciates that. Let's talk about the content of what today was all about. Motion to dismiss this indictment. There was a secret hearing because it involved grand jury,
right,
and then an open hearing. What do we know? What are the results here?
And that closed hearing earlier today, I just want to mention it went long. We were delayed about 30 minutes until we could enter the courtroom because of how long the earlier closed hearing took, and that was on other grounds as grand jury bias, prosecutorial misconduct, Vinny, and those filings are under seal. And he didn't announce any sort of ruling, if any, yet for that particular motion to dismiss the indictment, so we don't know the status of that, but we do know the status of what happened this afternoon in the public hearing, and that's where Kohberger's defense tried to challenge the standard of proof. They say it should have been a higher standard of proof for the grand jury to consider before they indicted him on 4 first-degree murder counts, and they cited cases as far back as the founding fathers of the state of Idaho, as well as statutory interpretation. Let's take a look at how it went.
So that if you're in a position to get an indictment against somebody, you're going to put it on your A game. Obviously, we've been talking a bit about how we don't think that that's what occurred in this particular case. And we certainly don't think that if the court were to adopt this in this particular case, that this would even remotely cut the mustard, because we know from the grand jurors that at least 6 of them wanted to hear more.
As much as I enjoy the frolic through legislative history, as a trial attorney, we usually have a shortcut. And that is, we check to see if the Idaho Supreme Court has ruled on the issue. And in this case, it has multiple times. There's nothing to see here. The Idaho Supreme Court has ruled on this, and this court is not that.
I appreciate the argument. I think it's really creative. And I appreciate the journey back through history. I think it is an important factor in determining what the law is. I am going to deny that argument. I think the argument is good, but I can't go that far. Not today. It's always enjoyable to have an argument with you, Mr. Lawson.
So the judge upholding the precedent of probable cause as the standard, Vinny, and encouraged the defense, if they want to appeal this decision up to the Idaho Supreme Court, they can take those creative arguments up there.
Chanley, I don't want to scare you. I don't know what you're looking at. Sometimes you can't see with the lights on you, but behind you, everyone at home is just looking at the snow right now. It looks like it is officially snowing.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Wow, you're back in Idaho for sure. Chanley Painter, Court TV legal correspondent, thank you so much.
Thanks, Vinny.
All right, let's bring in our think tank. Join us tonight in Los Angeles, California, criminal defense attorney Laura Uretzian. Also with us in Phoenix, Arizona, the attorney who represented Jodi Arias back in the day, doesn't like her, Kirk Nurmi. And also in Los Angeles tonight, former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani. Great to have everyone aboard. Laura, you were involved in a case that there was a lot of interest around the world. Kirk was involved in a case, a lot of interest around the world. This one has the same sort of interest. And I think it's, personally, right, obviously I work at Court TV, I understand the bias, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But in these big cases like this, I just think it's an opportunity for people who won't ordinarily be interested in what you all do and what we do and how 1/3 of our government actually works. It gives them an opportunity to see it work. So while he sounds like he wants control, Laura, it looks like, unlike in the Peterson matter, in this case, the folks will be able to see and hear some of the evidence.
Correct. It sounds like this judge is not going to ban the cameras out of the courtroom, but he's going to keep some control. And we'll have to figure out or see in the future what that control is going to look like and how much control is he going to have. It sounds like he's not going to be allowing live streaming, so there's going to be some delay wherein he's able to, if there's something that he doesn't want to be shown to the public, he's going to be able to cut it out. And again, I'm assuming that is going to have to go, the bottom line is this. As long as the public is getting to view the trial, you've got a judge who's being reasonable, and he wants to make sure that this defendant also gets the fair trial he deserves. And some control is acceptable in a situation like this, especially in a case that has gotten the notoriety this one has.
Yeah, and in the world we live in, Kirk Nurmi, there are people who will, after the fact, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, we're seeing these documentaries and these podcasts that question cases that were adjudicated inside a courtroom. And oftentimes what happens in those cases, and I'll give a great example, Making a Murderer. The people who made that documentary convinced the world that this guy was innocent. I mean, they convinced the world. They left evidence out of the documentary that was like some of the most incriminating evidence, which is why in the big cases that people are going to pay attention to and people are going to talk about and question whether or not our system really works, or people are getting railroaded, wrongfully convicted or wrongfully let go, whatever it is, if the evidence is shown, at least we kind of understand it.
Well, Vinny, you're right in general, but I think there's certain exceptions, because the primary purpose of a court of law has to be to perform justice, right? And as was just mentioned,
the purpose of a government is to serve the people, right? It's our government. Well, is it our government?
You're right, and justice is what serves people. But let me finish my point, Vinny, because here's the problem. The Sixth Amendment, that Constitution, guarantees a right to a fair trial. And in a death penalty case, the Eighth Amendment also guarantees that someone in his position, Mr. Kohberger or anyone else facing the death penalty, has a right to present mitigating evidence, all the evidence they want that could sway the jury to point them towards life. The problem is, if the cameras get so intense in certain trials that those witnesses don't want to come forward, then that sentencing phase becomes tarnished and may not pass Eighth Amendment scrutiny. And then justice isn't really done because it has to go back and the families suffer. So in cases that are these mega cases, I understand the judge's hesitation to leave it wide open and not, maybe have some of these witnesses fall to intimidation, et cetera, and not speak forward. So, I think he's taken a reasonable approach that I think will change as the trial evolves.
And Neem, you know what I'm getting from this judge on this issue? He's not concerned with people seeing what's happening. It's what people are doing with the images, like after the fact. And I think it's probably social media, where people are taking whether screen grabs or whatever, or analyzing things. And the last time, what scared me, what he was talking about, was trying to control like what people were saying about what was happening in the courtroom. And I was like, I don't think you can do that. I think people are allowed to say whatever they want and have whatever opinions you want, right? Isn't that also in the Constitution?
Well, it is. I mean, obviously, I'm a prosecutor, and the defense lawyers, they love the Sixth and Eighth Amendment, but there's the First Amendment, the freedom of the press. Our trials in this country, they're open. We don't have secret trials. And look, witnesses might be intimidated, but what's more intimidating, the court TV cameras or an accused quadruple murderer looking at you? And That's absolutely Kohberger's right to cross-examine and confront those witnesses. But from my perspective, the public has a right to know what's going on in these courtrooms. And it doesn't make sense to require people to stand in line for hours in the snow in Idaho to get a seat in that courtroom. I mean, let's give everyone access. I'm a big believer in cameras in the courtroom. And frankly, I think this is just another defense motion to create an unnecessary appellate issue, because that's how death penalty lawyers, and they're very good, they defend these cases. They know that there's a greater chance of getting it reversed on appeal than actually getting an acquittal.
You got a real good one right here, sitting below me right now. Okay, so, and over here as well.